Okay. You're welcome. Good morning, everybody. So today we're meeting to give everybody an update on the bridge, pretty specifically the demolition. The Governor and Director Alviti will be addressing a number of topics related to that. And one is the resumption of demolition of the bridge superstructure, the decision to demolish the substructure, and next steps for the procurement of a new bridge. And what we will be doing this week is plans for another more inclusive community meeting for those affected by the demolition. After the Governor and the Director are finished, then we'll take questions. So at this point, I'll give it over to Governor McKee, please.
Thanks, Joe, and good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. And before I talk about how we're moving forward with the demolition and the procurement for a new bridge, I want to address the issues of Friday's community meeting. I've spoken to Director Alviti and the DO team, and they understand that when the state holds a community meeting, the purpose for the community to be involved is for have a chance to share input and to ask questions. So at my direction, DOT is going to hold another virtual meeting on Thursday night at 6 p.m. to answer questions for residents and businesses about the resumption of the demolition and its potential impact on the neighborhood. I plan to be in attendance and to actually be managing that meeting. I think it's important, again, to state first, we apologize to the people who anticipated a little bit different outcome on Friday. They're going to get it on Thursday, and I expect that this will not be the first of community meetings so that we can do a better job, quite frankly, communicating to the community where I'm confident with the information that I'm going to provide today in terms of the progress of the demolition and the construction of the bridge, but I do publicly admit that we need to do a better job communicating what is actually going on and providing the communities that have been impacted by the bridge to have a better opportunity, quite frankly, to express their concerns, but also to provide their input. So now on to some news that I think is very important, and I want to thank the DOT and Joe and all the players that are really working hard to deliver on a project that is very multidimensional. There's a lot of moving parts, and the bridge demolition is one of those, and that will be resuming today. Overnight jackhammering will not start until Sunday on my request. That way we can talk with the residents at the community meeting on Thursday so that they have time to plan if their lives are being impacted in a way where they need a couple days to kind of make arrangements. Going forward, the only jackhammering that will need to be done at night is work that would significantly disrupt traffic during the day while drivers are trying to get to work, school, and to local businesses. We understand that uncertainty that currently exists and has existed for families to get to work on time, get their kids to school on time, get home for their dinner on time is something that has been very problematic for the families that live in our state. I know that the evening noise is a problem and an inconvenience for residents in the area. I've talked to the councilman about this directly, and he's supplying some information for that meeting on Thursday. But we know that it's necessary, right? We have to get this work done. And we're moving as fast as we can to get it done right. We know it's taking a long time. It's going to take a longer time, but we've got to make sure that we're getting it right. Speaking of the timing, I know many of you have questions about the pause in demolition. We have a strong litigation team, both our private attorneys that we brought on, along with the Attorney General's office, and they have my full confidence. They advised us to put a pause in place last month with the understanding that it would help the case and would be temporary. And that's what happened. Litigation and operations respect each other's distinct and separate roles. They have a job to do that dates prior to December 11th. I have a job to do going from December 11th forward. Ultimately, it was my call to resume demolition work so we can keep the project moving forward. As I said, this is a multi-dimensional project and there's a lot of moving parts, but I have full confidence that the work that is being done to get the bridge built is being done in a way that I have confidence in. So that's our number one priority. My number one priority is for the people in Rhode Island is to get this bridge built as soon as possible and as safely as possible. And also, I want to just say that there's other work happening in the state as well. The bridge is the priority, but the infrastructure is improving as we speak in the state. We've moved up 12 spots on a recent ranking, quite frankly, on infrastructure. That work has to continue as well, and that's part of the multi-dimensional issues that we're dealing with, not only to build a bridge, but to keep the work going that's happening throughout municipalities throughout the state. I know that even though I'm grateful that we have been able to open up 3 lanes in both directions on the eastern side of the bridge, the closure of the western bridge, as I said, has presented real hardship for families and businesses. Additionally, in other demolition news, we are moving up demolition of the bridge substructure to February 2025 as part of the active demolition contract. And here's why that's beneficial. It will ensure an efficiency and efficient continuation of the work because crews and equipment are already mobilized on the site. That means we are avoiding additional time and costs associated with bidding out the contract, remobilizing to demolish the substructure later in the project. This update also removes a level of uncertainty for potential reconstruction bidders, helping ensure the new procurement attracts qualified bids. The work of the removal of the structures below the water line also is going to have to be done. So it's work that we're going to get ahead of when we go out for procurement to identify the contractor who will be building the brand new bridge. So the next bit of news today, we are moving forward with the procurement, the reconstruction of the new bridge. After the first RFP, we did not deliver what we had expected. We looked at different paths forward. We went out for a request for information. That gave us real insight directly from potential bidders as to what options were out there and which would attract the greatest number of bidders. In considering those options, we asked ourselves, what will get this project done as quickly as possible? How can we minimize uncertainty in terms of scope and timeline? And how can we ensure the best use of taxpayers' dollars? I'm going to let Director Alviti talk to you about this in more detail, but the upshot is that we have chosen a 2-step procurement process that starts with an RFQ. a request for qualifications from potential bidders that will help us narrow the field of bidders early on in the procurement process. The RFQ will be followed by an RFP, where a narrowed pool of vendors submit competitive proposals for project costs and timelines. Let me tell you why I believe this is the best option, of several options that were considered. First of all, we're not asking a dozen vendors to spend months creating costly proposals that may not be selected in the end. That time and effort can often deter bidders from the process. Rather, we are choosing a select number of bidders with the understanding that we will compensate those for that work with us, but ultimately are not chosen. So by compensating a few contractors for the work, which is expensive to do the proposals, putting bid proposals together, we expect that we're going to get good responses from a few contractors that will ultimately be narrowed down to one contractor that will build the bridge. So we'll benefit from the competition without asking too much from too many responders. And that RFQ will be posted today. I believe that it's already been posted. Now, I'll be here to answer questions, but at this moment I'd like to turn over to Director Alviti, come up and fill in the blanks. Thanks, Director.
Thank you, Governor. So I'm pleased to be here today to let the folks of Rhode Island know that the pause in the work that we're doing on the project is over. RIDOT and our contractors are now ready to get back to work, and we thank everybody for their patience and perseverance that everyone has shown through this process. But what everybody wants to know at this point, I'm sure, is what we're going to do next to get the bridge built, to get a new bridge built. After the first attempt to solicit bids for the project, RIDOT and our consultants engaged with 10 of the most expert bridge building companies in the country, if not the world. We wanted to work with them to determine what the selection process should be in order to assure robust competition and provide Rhode Island with the best bridge at the best price on the best schedule. So here's what came out of that productive exchange of ideas that we had in exchange of information with these multinational companies. First, we're going to begin a two-step process to hire the best bridge building company that we can by ensuring, or by issuing rather, a request for companies to submit their qualifications first for building our new bridge. This will allow us to narrow down the field to two of the most highly qualified companies among them to compete for the contract to build the bridge. This is the first of a two-step process. Once the two companies are selected, we'll then issue a request for proposals from them. The RFQ, the request for qualifications, was issued this morning. And it's on the DOA website, and we have paper copies of it here to distribute to all of you today. This request for qualifications is going to allow companies to demonstrate that they have the capacity to do the work by showing us their access to resources, their staff qualifications, and their prior experience in building bridges like the Washington Bridge. During this process, we'll then select two of the most highly qualified companies based on scoring specific criteria defined in the RFQ that you'll see today. These two companies will also have the opportunity to give us feedback on the RFP form and will work with us to create in a manner an RFP that will make the award process go smoothly and quickly and provide the best competition. The two companies will then be allowed to compete for the contract to design and rebuild the new bridge by responding with their technical proposals in the RFP process. In this step, the companies will compete by providing their bridge design, their proposed cost, and detailed schedule of their completion of the project. RIDOT will then award the contract to rebuild the bridge to the company submitting the best proposal, as determined by specific criteria, scoring criteria in the RFP. The process will therefore allow us to contract with the most highly qualified company and the best and well-defined design, price, and schedule to build our new Washington Bridge. We expect to have the two most qualified companies selected in December through the qualifications process, and a final company selected by June with a notice to proceed with work by July. In addition to beginning the selection process of the bridge building contractor, today we're going to issue a change order to Aetna Bridge, giving them the approval to demolish the substructure, the piers, and the footings underneath the existing bridge. We're assuring, by doing this, we're going to ensure the continuity of demolition work by having the company that's already out there with their equipment, their personnel, dedicated workforce, and expertise to also remove the substructure in a sequence with the superstructure demolition that they're currently doing. It will also streamline the job site logistics and scheduling conflicts that could develop by having two separate contractors on the same work site. This is another strategy that we discussed in depth with the 10 companies, the 10 expert bridge building companies, when we conferred with them during the last couple of months. In our discussions with the companies, we learned that most of them did not want to include the reuse of the existing substructure in their designs for a new bridge, nor did they want the responsibility or the risk associated with determining whether or not those substructures would be adequate for the life of a new bridge superstructure, nor did they want to assume the risk of the demolition of the rest of that. So for that reason, we've made a decision to move that demolition component of what would be done during the construction project back into the existing demolition contract. By moving the demolition to the current contract, we can assure a faster completion of the demolition work and allow the contractor selected to build a new bridge to do their work faster without being delayed by having to demolish the substructure. I want you to know that we spent many hours conferring with these 10 companies during the RFI process. Their knowledge and ideas about how to craft the new RFP and some insight into their industry standards has been implemented into the new RFP and RFQ process. We heeded their advice and their ideas. This change order for the demolition project extension to the piers and substructure is ready to go and will be implemented quickly. Demolition of the substructure should start in February, according to this change order, and it will be completed by December of '25. That time frame, while bringing a new contractor for the construction on in July of next year, will allow them the 6-month period to do many tasks that they need to do before actually needing to be on the ground where those existing piers are. There's a design process that they have to initiate, a final design process. They will be constructing prefabricated components of the new bridge during that time. They'll be mobilizing their workforce. They'll be putting together any regulatory permits that will be necessary for the new construction. And by the December completion of the substructure, they'll be ready to move in seamlessly with into the active construction zone and begin the erection of the new bridge. This RFP process that we'll be entering into to select the final company will begin in the December timeframe. The required companies will submit their technical proposals. It will be down to 2 companies at that point of the most qualified. Those 2 companies will submit technical proposals on cost, schedule, and the actual design that they're intending to implement. There are going to be numerous discussions between December and June when we select the final company to build a bridge. And those discussions will cover a wide range of information, including their design concepts, their building methods, the materials that they're going to use, their personnel utilization and experience, the environmental permitting strategies that they'll employ, and many other factors involved in the new construction. That process will result in the companies each providing their final and best proposals to us, and we expect to select and award to the final company in June. The final cost of the project, the final schedule of the completion of the design and construction of the new bridge will be determined in that process. In the meantime, we're going to, at RIDOT, do our very best to keep the public informed about what's going on, not only with travel advisories, but also with additional public meetings, which we'll conduct regarding each phase of the work as we move forward. We'll be sure in those public meetings to answer questions in real time. Regarding the second public meeting on the demolition of the Washington Bridge that the governor referred to, as of this morning, we're encouraging all those who are affected by the demolition to register and participate in the virtual information session on Thursday, this coming Thursday, October 17th at 6 p.m. by going to our website and registering. They can also, we're making available on our website the ability to post questions in advance of the meeting if that's more convenient, or they have trouble attending the upcoming meeting. I will be there along with the governor to answer questions live from both the meeting last Friday and the upcoming meeting on Thursday. We realize that people want a chance to ask questions and get answers in real time. So we'll do that. We're going to do that on Thursday, beginning at 6 o'clock. And we're planning more meetings for the weeks ahead to allow for additional community participation. We want the neighbors to know that they can expect what they can expect from the demolition process, and we want to hear and respond to their concerns. We know the first meeting didn't go as intended. We know that. But we're going to move forward and make that right beginning on Thursday. So that's the plan of the work that we have going forward from today. Procurement is going on, demolition is continuing, and we will be communicating with the neighborhoods. RIDOT, our staff, myself, are looking forward to beginning the real work of creating another new bridge for Rhode Island. Building new bridges is the work that we do best at RIDOT. And we all work hard to make sure, and we will work hard to make sure that this bridge gets built the same way. Joe?
So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to bring the governor, excuse me, back up. So if I could ask, if you can kind of put your questions, Governor, and I'll bring the director back up for questions, and the governor will come up and close. So if your initial questions or any questions you have that you want directed to the governor, this would be the best time to do it. Thank you.
All right, we're going to start with
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Governor. Do you anticipate having all of the necessary funding in place by the time this begins? Do you need all the funding in place by the time this begins?
We've, certainly working with the General Assembly, have put the resources on the table, whether it's in the Gavi bond, which is about $348 million, or actual cash, which was put into the budget, over $80 million. $125 million we just received from the the federal mega grant. And it's a good moment in time to say, part of that multidimensional task that we're at includes the federal government. And we certainly have been in contact with them with everything that has been talked about today. And we're anticipating that we're continually working on additional federal grants. So that's the long answer to a short answer that could be, yes, we're confident that we do have the funding in place.
Idea now when a new bridge will open?
No, and we're not going to have that until we go through the process, but we're getting, certainly when we open up the RFQ and then identify the contractors that are going to be putting a design build presentation for us, but I think the director said that we'll have that addressed in June. So we'll have a better idea of the time frame at that point in time. I know that certain time frames were outlined by the director today, so we're confident about those timelines in terms of the demolition.
Are you disappointed in those time frames? They're nothing that resembles what you initially had hoped for several months ago. What was your reaction when you realized the new time frames that we're looking at?
Well, I certainly, we're all understanding that building a bridge is complicated, and under the circumstances, without any advanced preparation, December 11th, we began it. We thought we were going to be back in business in 90 days, right, with the PIN issues that we're all familiar with. That didn't happen. And so, we're, from that point, we're putting together a strategy that will take down the bridge. We just notified you that it's going to be important to take the subsurface, construction, demolition that needs to be done. So right now, based on what I know today, I think that we're heading in the right direction, and we're on a time frame that will be consistent. We compared ourselves to Maryland in some ways, the two different projects. Our bridge needed to be taken down, their bridge was in the water. So, and yet they're talking about a 2028 time frame. Look, it's going to take time, and we're going to do it right. And that's the message that we're delivering today and going forward.
Governor, you obviously expressed disappointment over the weekend on how that meeting went on Friday. I'm wondering, has your administration taken any job action against any state employees since the Washington Bridge failed? And right now, do you still have confidence in Director Alviti and leadership?
Yeah, so first, on the meeting, I think I was pretty public about the fact that, I couldn't really express my disappointment strongly enough. I think that I mentioned in my comments that, there's a certain amount of tone deafness that is there that we're certainly recognizing, and we're going to take care of that. But at the same point in time, the work that is being done, I have full confidence in the DOT to actually get that work done.
Have you taken any job action against any state employee over the Washington Bridge?
No. No, I don't think it's called for at this point in time. I think certainly my expressing of a poorly run community meeting certainly lets the public know that I'm not happy with what happened on Friday night.
Hi, Governor. Can you talk a little bit more about the ways that these changes are going to affect total costs? So, for example, the change order to Aetna, paying for whichever company is the second company to submit an RFP that doesn't win, and then, obviously the extended time.
So the cost of taking out the substructure that we're talking about was going to have to be paid one way or the other, right? Either we're going to include that in the ultimate contractor that's going to be building the bridge, but we're doing that in advance, which I think is smart based on the information that we have right now. As far as the overall cost of the bridge, I think I answered that question with Steve, is that we have the funds in place to do the project. We're not going to know the final cost until we get the final proposals in.
So if you don't know the final cost, how do you know if you have the funds in place?
Well, again, we're working with the federal government, the federal highway. They're walking this through with us all the way through as well, because it's an 80-20, a minimum of an 80-20 split. As we get more mega grants, that becomes a little bit more manageable for the state. But I would answer that question is that we're working with the federal highway, who is the has the background on this, along with our office, along with other experts, to say that when we negotiate this cost, and I think that's one of the reasons that we took the path we're taking, is we want a competitive bid process. Maryland is not necessarily in a competitive bid process. They picked the one contractor, and that contractor they're going to negotiate a price with that one contractor. We feel as though that we're headed in the right direction, and yes, we don't know the cost at the end, and we won't know that until we have the bid selection that have been outlined in June.
When it comes to the community meeting and now the new procurement process, why is it that RIDOT keeps needing these do-overs, and how do you ensure that these missteps don't keep happening? Yeah, so
I think I'll repeat that the missteps on a community meeting is, look, I've had a lot of experience in community meetings over time, and I understand that you have to not only present the information that we believe that the public needs, but we also have to hear from the public, and if we have to take a couple shots during that time, we have to kind of stand there and take it. So I think one of the things is, one, and I've acknowledged that we got to do a lot better in terms of providing the information to the public that is being impacted in particular, and also with the confidence, as I've said, that the work that we're putting in place is actually going to get the job done. We got to do a better job of not only providing that information in these community meetings, but also listen to the potential problems that any one individual may have. And I think this coming meeting on Thursday, I'm looking forward to that. And I've also said in my comments that this is not going to be the first of public meetings that I will be involved in.
This happened with the procurement process as well. This is the second time you're doing this. Why not do the two-step process to begin with? We maybe could have chosen a company much sooner than June of next year.
Well, we may have, and that's in the past. We have to kind of move forward where we are right now. But I can also stand here and say, based on the demolition schedule, we're actually on schedule. We haven't lost time. When you look at the demolition ending, in December of 25, for the substructure, and we'll have someone in place in June for the contract, and they'll be able to start doing their, setup work during that time frame. So we haven't lost time, but I can't disagree that it could have been smoother.
We're going to go to Steph, Kate, and then Rhode.
Governor, so what is the total cost now of the change order with Aetna to demolish the bridge?
So we're still in negotiation with that. So we don't have an absolute price on that, but we'll have that in short order.
And you say that you would have had to pay to demolish the substructure anyway in the build contract, but wasn't the contractor going to be given the option to leave all of that in the water?
When we went through the RFI, it was pretty much consensus during that process that they wanted to have a clean site when they came in and did the contract. And so
I'm talking about the cost, though, that the new company in your old plan might not have demolished that substructure. So isn't there an additional cost now that you've definitely decided to demolish the substructure?
yes,
Do you know how much?
we don't know yet. That's what we're negotiating. But I think yes, if you turn the clock back to when we went out for the original RFP, that was the option was being given, right, as you're saying correctly. Now, once we went through the RFI, after not getting the first response on the RFP, we had a full understanding that the substructure had to come down. It was a matter whether we were going to include that into the general contract that was going to build the bridge, or whether we were going to do it with the company that is currently doing the demolition. When we balanced all the factors, we believe that the best route is to take the contractor on site right now and negotiate a price with them.
And just one more thing, we're now talking about the contract next year beginning about 11 months later than what you wanted if you had issued an award this past summer. Can you say that the Washington Bridge will not reopen in 2026?
Well, I'm going to say that when we actually get the timeline in place. Again, the contract that we're putting in place for the build the bridge is still timely in respect to the demolition timeframe. Right?
Thanks, Steph. Actually, just give me a second here. I want to dovetail off of the first question Steph asked. Give me a second. So again, the change order for Aetna, how is this not directing a contract in violation of state purchasing?
Well, certainly we're running through that all through our legal team in terms of making sure that we do this correct. So I'm confident that we're getting the advice from legal team that we can do a change order to a project that's currently under, that's in progress at the moment.
Okay, now I have a second question. So the neighbors who live next to the bridge are fully aware they live next to a highway. They've not complained about the noise of the highway before, but now since the demolition, dust is blowing all over their materials, their cars. There's a gentleman who had a stroke within the vicinity. There's a woman who's 9 months pregnant. Why isn't your administration doing more to protect these neighbors? And why hasn't there been testing of this dust that is now all over the neighborhoods and will resume on Sunday? As we know, the Department of Transportation does not have the best track record when it comes to contamination on projects. Why has there been no testing? Will there be testing?
Yeah, so that's certainly the reason I'm stepping in and managing a meeting on Thursday night, so that I'm hearing directly from individuals their particular concerns, and when they rise to a level that we need to do some testing, we'll do that. If they rise to a level where we need to provide a certain amount of assistance or help that's not currently in the mix, we'll do that. So
do you think what the neighbors are going through is appropriate right now? Would you like this level of dust to be collected and brought to your homes?
Of course not. And, I've delayed the overnight jackhammering, until we have a chance to talk to the people. And that should have been done prior to, but I can't turn the clock back. But I can do everything I can right now to talk directly with those individuals. And I have no problem. I have visiting them individually as well. So I'm looking forward to that meeting, and I'm looking forward to making progress on the very issues you're talking about.
Thank you, Governor.
Yes.
Thank you, Governor. First question is for Peter Alviti.
Take me first.
I can take one for you.
When I leave the mic, I might not come back, Ray, you know?
Oh, but let me ask you the first one. He's lying to the community. DOT is lying to the community. I mean, because they don't respect you. I mean, Peter Alviti, when he finished the bridge, he needs to resign. But why do you want me to believe all this paperwork? Every time Gabriela want to ask a question, Tara Granahan want to ask a question to him, I want to interview him, he run away like a chicken. I want to know why. Why he don't want to sit down with the real reporter to answer the hard question, just running away.
Well,
he did it twice to us, and then he never want to answer Tara Granahan question or Rinaldo question. What is wrong? I need to know that.
Well, we're here to answer your questions today, Ray. So, you certainly can ask your questions that you have on your mind of the director and myself.
Well, let me ask a question to the director.
Certainly, If we need to do better, we will. I think the starting point is exactly what has been talked about is Thursday night in terms of like, I'm gonna go be out talking directly with the people and let them know that we're on their side and we're trying to get it done as quickly as possible, and we need to do a little better job listening, and potentially, you have a point. Potentially, we need to do a little better job communicating with you and others.
Yeah, well, everybody, but the question is for Peter. Can I believe all this paperwork that you're giving to us, or this is trash? Don't answer the question, because every time we go to a meeting, you hand us a whole bunch of papers, and then you guys change your mind.
What is the paperwork you're talking about there, Ray? Is that the RFQ?
Yeah, everything that you sent to us.
Yeah, so the RFQ is been posted
Well, let
today.
Peter answer the question, Governor. He needs to answer the question to us.
Well, of course you're going to have to read the information.
The question
Everybody's gonna
is
have to read
that I'm going to believe all this paperwork.
Well, you
Or we're
can,
going to
or
go back in time and have the same argument.
You can get into the depth of the paperwork, or you can listen to our overview. What we're basically saying is we're going out with an RFQ. We're going to identify multiple businesses, and they're going to be directly contacted that could show that they have the qualifications to actually build this bridge. And then during the process, we're going to identify two people, two or three contracts, a smaller group, that'll actually put together a design-build strategy that will make a decision in June in terms of who's going to build the bridge. That's, in essence, what you have in front of you.
Well, before I retire, I want to send an invitation to both of you to do the show with me, and also with Tara Granahan and with Rabiela.
Okay. Thank you, Ray.
Question for the director, is that,
Are we good?
is that okay?
Am I good? You all done with me for the moment?
Anybody else for the governor?
Okay, good. All right, Peter, you got it.
Director, when you talk about demolition of the substructure, you'd mentioned that there may be other things that would come up. What do you mean there? Are you talking about environmental remediation? And then further, that substructure, is that related to both sides of the bridge, the post-tensioning system on that bridge? In other words, if they demolish the substructure, are they potentially impacting the eastbound span?
No. The eastbound span is a totally separate bridge, totally separate structure from the one that's being demolished. So the demolition of the substructure on the westbound bridge in no way affects the eastbound bridge, nor is it connected to it.
But as far as you said, other things may come up. That was something to that effect is what you said. In the demolition of the substructure, what are those other things that might come up, and what impact could they have on the overall project? Are we talking environmental remediation, or?
I'm not sure what you mean by my reference to other things that might come up. In what regard?
As the demolition of the substructure takes place, whoever is engaged in that work may encounter other issues. You said something to that effect.
We're not expecting that there will be. The issue will be to remove the piers, and then from that point remove the substructure below the water line to the mud line. And we reviewed our plans to move forward with the FHWA, who is going to participate, providing 80% of the funding for that. We've reviewed it with our consultants, and the work plan that is being selected for the execution of this demolition has been vetted by these experts and the company themselves.
So you're not concerned about environmental remediation if you're going to turn over a clean...
No, as a matter of fact, we've conferred with the environmental regulatory agencies. They have site criteria for us, given different methodologies in demolishing the substructure. They provided us with different scenarios of oversight and regulatory control. We selected one that will allow us to move forward with the demolition, but not during the 4-month period during which fish are spawning or active in that area. We'll refrain from underwater activities during that time frame, thereby obviating the need for cofferdams and those kinds of things. We determined that given the various scenarios of either providing cofferdams and doing the work inside cofferdams, or refraining from doing the work during the months that may impact wildlife, the least expensive and the fastest way to be able to conduct the full demolition is the manner that we selected. That is, refrain from doing work for those 4 months below the water line. We'll be allowed to do the pier removal above the water line during that time period, and then move into that area after the regulatory period is over. Beginning in the summer, they'll be able to go back in and do the underwater demolition. So that provides us with the best price and the best schedule.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Alviti, the alleged failure point to the bridge purportedly causing the shutdown was the broken connecting rod, aka pin, on span 7, pier 6, cantilever A. Some experts are claiming that based on the nature of the fracture that had been broken for quite some time. Where is the pin? Was it removed and when? Was Barletta able to test it? And if so, what are the results? And of course, what was this done to protect Cardi Corporation?
So all of those questions have direct impact and involvement in the legal proceedings that are currently being taken with the companies by our legal team. And I'm going to defer answering any of those questions to that legal team.
So when can we get the answers and where?
Say it again, please.
When can we get the questions answered then? It would appear that, for lack of a better term, bad pun here, that the entire event hinges, if you will, on those test results.
Yes. That is a question, again, that I'm going to have to refer you to the legal team to get answered.
Well, it is, I'll make this simple without any evidentiary sense. Do we know where the location of this piece of hardware is? Because apparently it was removed from the site.
So I'm going to say it again. These are matters that are involved in the legal process, and the legal team is handling and answering all questions related to those issues.
Okay. Our sources tell us that the two companies have actually already been chosen, Skanska and Manafort. Can you confirm or deny that?
That is untrue.
Okay.
All right, we're going to move on to Kathy.
Three but completely interrelated questions. Now that we're here, you're starting the two-step RFP process. Are you going to release the responses that you got on August 2nd to why people were concerned and didn't bid the first time? That's number one. Number two, related, what do you know now? What information do you have that you didn't have before that tells you we have to remove the substructure from piers? What kinds of, is it just a matter of the risk to the contractors, or did you find fault that perhaps faults you didn't know about? And the third part of that is reading very, very quickly. It mentions that you're increasing your stipend to the company that may bid and not get the contract to 1.75. What was it before? I didn't realize it was in there at all. And have we ever done this before, paid companies money that do not qualify for a contract? That was four.
So I'll take them in reverse order because I remember them best that way. Yes, we have provided stipends during an RFP process with other companies in design-build projects. Not only do we do it, but DOTs across the nation do that. In fact, we do it with the blessing and support of the Federal Highway Administration that will be paying 80% of that cost. So they agree with that process. They think it's productive. We do too. And we think it lends for better competition.
And you're
Why?
increasing from what to what?
Say it again?
In here it says you're increasing the stipend.
Yes.
to
So
1.75.
when we're going to be providing that stipend to multiple companies, it was $500,000. Now that we're limiting it only to one company that will be reimbursed, because remember, only two are going into the final step. One of those companies that lose will be afforded the stipend. And now that we're down to one company, we're able to increase the amount that we're awarding to that company. Let me say this. In our conference with the companies and understanding the cost involved in them putting together the plans and technical specifications for a highly detailed RFP process like this bridge is, their actual costs far exceed that amount of money. We're just reimbursing them a portion of what it actually costs these companies. And again, we're doing it with the knowledge, consent, and approval and support of the Federal Highway Administration that is going to be participating by providing 80% of that cost. That's number one. Number two.
One of the two pieces of this, one is, what do you know now that you didn't know before that says we have to remove the substructure?
We don't know anything else about the substructure itself. In other words, the condition of the substructure or its suitability to support in the future. And that was part of the problem. Okay? We have had projects in the past that we've done for DOT that we have left in the proposal stage up to the proposers to tell us whether or not they intend on using the substructure, existing substructure of a bridge. In those cases, we make it a requirement that the contractor not only assume the responsibility for doing that, but also they assume the responsibility for the structural integrity and proper testing of it to prove to both us and the Federal Highway Administration that the substructure is suitable and substantial for reuse and will support the lifespan of a new structure put on top of it. That risk with regard to this project was deemed by most, if not all, of the 10 companies that we interviewed with to be a risk that was too high for them to assume as part of this project. While on other projects, companies routinely assume that risk, for this particular project, they felt that being able to determine to the satisfaction of RIDOT in the federal agency that the substructure was suitable to support the new structure for the life of the new structure, and to be responsible for those assumptions is something that rose above the level of risk that companies on their commercial terms were willing to accept in this case. We have eliminated that now. We've eliminated that risk by saying we are making the decision now to remove that prior to a company being awarded and being responsible to do the new bridge. There are added benefits that they pointed out to us. By not being required to conform to the layout and size and dimensions of the existing footings, this will also allow the companies the freedom to redesign the substructure and piers on the new structure in a way that's even more efficient using modern technology and modern materials. So we're being not only eliminating the risk, which encourages more companies to participate in the competition, but we're also allowing them to use their imagination to give us the best design.
That's two.
Yes.
One more.
Okay.
Want me to remind you? August 2nd, you got responses from 10 companies, I think you said,
yes,
that did not bid as to why they didn't bid.
Yes.
Are you now that we've reached this point in the process willing to make that public? So we can see exactly what you're telling us, that the companies told you this.
Yeah. Let me at least answer that at a high level. The details of their responses are still part of the procurement process, RFI, RFQ, RFP. So at the end of that process, all of that information will become public. But let me give you a heads up as to at least the high-profile areas of concern that these companies let us know during the RFI process. They were, one, the risk with the substructure that we talked about. There was a matter of the amount of time that we gave them to actually put the proposal in. These companies have to make decisions on a moment-by-moment basis of what other projects are out regionally for them to decide which ones they're going to bid on and put their resources to. And the amount of time that we were giving them in the original RFP was too short, they felt, for them to properly respond to it. We've lengthened them. We've listened to them. There were a couple of other factors, but those are the two main factors that we found in going through them. The two-step process that allows a large number of companies to initially compete on the basis of their qualifications, and then fewer to enter into the final round of technical proposal, which takes up a lot of their resources, a lot of their time, a lot of their personnel, and a lot of money. By bringing that down to 2 instead of having multiple companies, they feel that the investment that they would make at that point would be more targeted from their marketing standpoint.
Right,
So those are 3 of the big.
All right, we take a couple quick more, so I'm just going to wrap it up with Gabrielle, Eli, Patrick.
2 quick questions for Director Alviti. If the new rebuild contract won't be awarded until June, a year and a half after the bridge initially shut down, and the demo work won't be done until next December, about 2 years later, when is the rebuild of the Washington Bridge actually going to begin?
The rebuild will actually begin in June and July of this year. The company that we select will immediately begin actually creating the workforce that's going to build it, putting in the environmental permitting that's necessary to rebuild it, finalizing the design that we select for them to implement, finalizing that, doing all of the shop drawings and all of the fabrication of prefabricated units that are manufactured at off-site. They'll be able to start that process. They'll be able to start ordering the material and the equipment, the heavy equipment, which they need to schedule months in advance to bring onto the site. Some of these large cranes and equipment that they'll be using. They'll be able to begin mobilizing. There is a lot of work that happens in that first 6-month period of a project like this. They'll be able to hit the ground running in June and begin that process right away, so that when the demolition is done, everything they'll need will be in place for them to actually begin implementing it.
During the RFI process, did any companies give any indication of how long it will take in order for a new bridge to open?
That wasn't part of the RFI process. The RFI process was aimed particularly at trying to find out what the commercial terms in the new procurement process should look like in order to attract better competition.
So there's no idea of when a new bridge?
No. The schedule, the questions with regard to schedule and cost and scope, and actually what it'll look like, are going to be answered by these companies as we go through the next several months until June, where we select one of them. At that time, that will determine, the companies themselves through competition will determine how quickly, how expensively, and what it will look like. Those are all factors that are important in the selection of a winning company, that they'll be competing to bring the best schedule, the best price, and the best design to us. And at the end of this process, we're going to end up with those 3 things: the best schedule, the best price, and the best design.
Lastly, quickly, with the delay in selecting a company to rebuild the bridge, it appears we're all going to be driving over the eastbound structure for several more years. Yes. Internal DOT documents say that the eastbound Washington Bridge has become considerably more sensitive since the closing of the westbound bridge. Those were signed off on back in April, around the same time you were publicly saying there were no concerns with adding new lanes of traffic in each direction on that bridge. So which is it? Is the bridge considerably more sensitive, or is there no reason for concern?
Okay, sensitive we meant sensitive in the sense that it is now highly important, right? Having 2 directions, all of the traffic, east and westbound, going over that structure. We become more concerned about making sure, number one, that it's safe, and we did that. We had 3 companies look at it, and we're having active monitoring system, make sure it stays that way for the duration of the time. We're very confident that that is in fact the case, that it's safe, we can use it, it'll be fine for whatever duration we need to use it in. It is more sensitive, but sensitive in the figurative sense, not in the structural sense. It's no more vulnerable structurally than it was before. The use of it and the additional traffic that's going over it is fine. It's well designed to handle that for whatever duration we're having it. But it's sensitive in the figurative sense that it becomes highly important for us to make sure that during this time, we watch every little piece of it to make sure that before anything becomes a problem and creates an event where we have to maybe move in and do construction, we can do it incrementally in small pieces before it becomes a bigger issue. And that is the proactive stance that we're taking. We're watching it very closely. We're making sure that we keep it in extremely good repair, even beyond the standards that we would normally for a bridge like that one.
Director, can you talk, can we just go to, we'll get you guys, can you just go to, you said Eli and Patrick first, and then we'll.
Director, just a technical question. I want to make sure I'm understanding the change order correctly. You said that it had been effectuated, but then you said you're still negotiating the price. Where exactly does that stand, and when should we know what that new cost will be?
Yeah, I think it's imminent. I think in the next day or so, you'll see that transaction happen and be solidified.
Okay, and then I asked the governor, so I'll ask you, do you feel like you and your team are delivering on the expectations of the governor on this project?
Yeah, I can see, look, I agree with the governor. We have fallen short on a couple of issues here, stumbles and steps. But the real value of DOT, its team, and the character of the people that we have working there is not how they act through clear sailing, smooth seas. It's how they react to challenging situations like the ones that arose out of this hearing, like the ones that arose out of the procurement, and how we recover from that in a way that moves this project forward, like many others. We've experienced similar kind of setbacks on many other projects, several hundred bridges that we've rebuilt during the last several years. Each of those challenges that my team has faced, they've met them, they have corrected them, and we have completed those projects successfully, safely, and economically in all of those cases. 99% of our projects on time, on budget. We expect to do the same thing with this. We'll be delivering for the governor. We'll be delivering for the people in the state of Rhode Island. The phase that we're moving into right now, which is the construction phase, is the phase that these folks at DOT do the best. You've seen us rebuild bridges over weekends. You've seen us rebuilding bridges over months. But in all cases, they end up better than they were before, and they end up being built in a way that will last for decades. And this is no different. Now that we're moving, I have confidence in the folks at DOT that now that we're moving into this phase of work, we'll be able to deliver on this bridge as we have in all of the other ones.
And have you taken any job action against any of your employees over the Washington Bridge?
I have not. There is nothing indicating that in any of the studies and or other information that I have that indicates that any action is necessary at this point.
Director, you keep on talking about having a best... I've waited before. I'm going to ask my question. Director, you keep on talking about having a best price. How do you have a best price when you don't even have the price?
Right. The process itself assures for the best price. We know this through history. This process is used by other DOTs across the nation, by the Federal Highway Administration. It's sanctioned, and it is proven time after time that the competition that we will breed by having companies compete with their technical, their cost, and their schedules against each other actively will allow us to pick the one that provides the best solution for the state of Rhode Island.
Is the preservation of evidence done?
I just want to repeat, Pat, not to interrupt you. Let's have some courtesy, is the same courtesy we're providing to everyone in this room, to the people, the professionals that are running this press conference. Thank you very much. Go ahead, ask your
Is
question.
the preservation of evidence done past tense, or is that being incorporated into the change order and will be done by the demolition contractor over the coming weeks?
Could you repeat that?
Is the preservation of evidence that the pause was done for, is it now completed past tense, or is it being incorporated, and will it be done by the contractor in the change order?
Everything related to evidence in any information regarding the legal case that our legal team currently has against companies needs to be referred and asked of the legal team. We won't be answering those questions.
This is specifically about the demolition. All right, so I'll add a second question. Governor, you admonished the DOT and the director for the community meeting and the way that was held. Do you sense any disconnect in the level of criticism regarding a community meeting versus the level of public criticism about the maintenance, repair, procurement for the rebuild of the bridge, which has undergone multiple stumbles?
Yeah, so I want to put it into the context of the total work that's being done to improve infrastructure in the state of Rhode Island, to address the issue in terms of, do I have confidence in DOT? Yes, I do. And not only are we doing work continuously, but I would also say that we know that one of my goals is that our infrastructure ratings improves, and they are improving. So in addition to that, while you're asking the question in terms of confidence, I'll kind of digress slightly, but we're also repairing and we're improving municipal roads through the McKee administration's municipal road program, where we're doing a 2-to-1 match. That we're talking about almost $100 million of local road improvements. So the question is, do we have confidence in what's happening, in the process right now in terms of rebuilding the Washington Bridge? Yes, and I say that in the context of the overall work that is being done, in the state as we speak. We know that building a bridge is certainly a complicated issue. And as I said, it's got multiple moving parts, and we're not going to have a straight line from the beginning to the end without any stumbling. And we admit it when we stumble, but the fact of the matter is that we're on progress, we're on site right now. We are in a timeline that the demolition is being done. Remember, the demolition award was awarded in a timely way. And that work, we need to demolish the bridge before we can rebuild the bridge. And we've just outlined a scenario where we're going to have a contractor in place before the demolition has been completed. So I think that's one of the things that needs to be reported in terms of the overall what's happening at DOT. Yes, I think that I've already admitted multiple times that there's going to be more community meetings, and I'm going to be in them. And I want to hear the exact frustration that you're specifically speaking to relative to the general public, and I will be there and we'll address it.
Quickly, Director Alviti, can you understand why, to borrow from Arlene Violet, Joe and Mary Public might hear you say sensitivity about the eastbound lane? They understand that a load-bearing measuring system is being installed,
Yes.
and that the random person out there hearing this that doesn't pay a lot of attention might deduct that, hey, that bridge, for whatever reason, is not safe to traverse. Do you understand that is a possibility?
We absolutely do, which really is one of the major reasons that we're doing it in the first place. We're doing it in order to address the concerns of those who are increasingly sensitive to, is it safe? Do I travel over it? Do I bring my kids? Is the bus safe going over it? We're doing this additional monitoring and raising the level of scrutiny that we place on that bridge, not because we suspect something is wrong, but because we want to make sure as we move through this process, nothing goes wrong with it. And we're taking extremely high measures and setting the bar very high on ourselves and making sure that if there's a pebble, if there's a stone, where we would normally let that ride on a regular bridge, even those smallest, most minute things we're taking care of on this bridge, and we're paying that high level of attention to it to assure the public that it stays safe for the entire period of time. That's why we're doing this, not because we suspect anything or not because we have any information that there's anything wrong with it. We don't. To the contrary, we have information that everything is right with it. But we want to make sure it stays that way, and we're keeping a very high level of surveillance on it, higher than we do on any other bridge, to make sure that it stays that way.
Thanks, everybody.
Governor McKee, the small business grant program that you advertised heavily with Commerce RI, what were the results of that? That was extended. There did seem, at least personally, a lot of interest. How many grants were given? How many loans were there?
Yes, so the brief summary, Providence and Commerce, of about 1,000, I'm told. They're reviewing those as we sit. East Providence hasn't exhausted all their funds, so that's in process right now. But those funds will be provided to the small business. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for the patience today and for being here. And the message to the people in the state of Rhode Island is that we're going to take the time that we need. It's going to be done safely. And as we've expressed, we're certainly going to be out talking to more people face to face to understand fully the complications that this bridge has brought forward in their lives. And we understand that, and we're going to address everyone every situation personally in a way that hopefully people will understand that the work is being done, it's being done safely, and we are on a timeline that is consistent with building a new bridge under these circumstances. So thank you all for being here today.
What's that? You want to say, or you want to? I got to run it out.
He always runs.